Special Education Services. And I say all that as different pieces of the hierarchy for you, just to kind of help you understand where we fit and what the Office of Early Learning is, to get the bigger picture before we talk about how you make referrals for those kiddos where you have concerns. So the Office of Early Learning is a big umbrella under which preschool programs fits. Under preschool programs is Preschool Special Education Services and is also Title I. So we're all housed in the same, under the same umbrella, but doing our own things. We also house the Early Learning Center at Memory Road that opened last year that has a bunch of Title I classrooms at it and also serves children with IEPs in those Title I classrooms. And then our sister organization of preschool programs is Project Enlightenment. And that's really why I wanted to tell you this piece, because a lot of people do not think Project is part of Wake County Public School System, and it is. They're not some standalone entity. They are grant funded a lot for the most part, but they are part of Wake County. They are part of the Office of Early Learning, and they are our like sister organization. So they will screen children where parents have concerns, but not necessarily to the level of thinking they need special education services. They just move on like, hey, maybe I need a little counseling, maybe I need some OT, those types of things. And if during that process, everything checks out okay, or they feel like some community resources or other project resources are what that would be best for that family, then they'll connect them with those or give them, here's some resources. If they suspect that child may have a disability, they make the referral directly to us. So families do not have to go through Project to get to us. And if you ever have, whether in your job or in your community, a family that really thinks their child probably needs an IEP or that a disability is there, and families don't often use the word disability as broadly as we do. So a lot of times I'll say or developmental delays because they don't think needing just speech is a disability, but it is in the state of North Carolina when it comes to getting special ed. They just need to come directly to us. They do not need to stop at Project to get to us. Okay, it's just, that's then just an extra step. It takes them even longer. So that's how I wanted to break all that down for you. Do you have any questions about how that fits together before we move to the next piece? Okay. So Child Find is where I live, part of the Child Find office, and within our office I have 4 Child Find reps and a special education data manager. We're getting ready to add 2 new early intervention transition specialists because of some changes to Part C to B, and I'll talk about that a little later on. If I forget, please remind me, since I know some of you are serving kiddos that may have also had maybe in early intervention or have transitioned out of it. So you'll know how that fits together. So this is just a copy of our brochure. The point I just wanted to bring up about Child Find, because this will be in your packet I'm going to show you in a minute, was not that. It's right here. So, Child Find is federally mandated, and we have to look for children who, within our community, who have special needs, who, without appropriate supports, would not be able to function in the regular early childhood environment the same as their peers, and also for families who may be transient. Okay? We want to make sure that if they have concerns about their child's development, that we are finding those children as well. But this brochure will be in your folder that I will send the link to Savannah at the end of this so that everybody can access it. We've moved it, Savannah, so it's not in the same Google location it was in before. Okay, so let's get to the meat of it. All right, let's talk a little bit about what the process looks like for families, and then we'll get to the part where it's like, okay, now here's how you help make that referral to us. So families often call and think that they're going to just, oh, my child needs speech, okay, we'll get your kid some speech. Or I want an evaluation, and they're automatically going to get an evaluation. So that's not how it works, and I want to talk you through that part. So this is also in your Google folder. Let me show you what this Google folder I keep referring to looks like. So this is what I'll give Savannah the link for. It's got instructions, it's got forms, it's got releases, it's got handouts in it. So you all have access to this as well. So you don't need to worry about taking notes on something you see on the screen because it'll be in the folder for you. Okay, so for us, we can only take referrals on children who live in Wake County and are 2 years, 10 months, and not yet age eligible for kindergarten. Just like you guys in pre-K, your family might think they need another year of Head Start, but sorry, you are now kindergarten age eligible. It works the same way for us. Those kiddos that they redshirt and they don't send to kindergarten, but then they want an IEP before they go to kindergarten the year after they could have gone, they have to go through the school system for that, not us. So, there are things that you have to do to make a referral, and we'll talk about that in the packet. The important parts for families to know is there's basically 3 steps for this. There's the referral meeting. Once the referral is made, the meeting is scheduled between usually an LEA, which we call our case managers, and LEA is our local education agency, and that's the representative who knows what all the rules are and the paperwork and makes sure that the meeting is run appropriately. So for us, that's our case manager, and then a BK certified teacher, the parent. If there's any specialty concerns, usually those people are present later at the eval. But sometimes if we're talking about a VI or HI kid, we might have somebody in that specialty area at the referral meeting. You can see the characteristics of the referral meeting here. This is very short information for parents. It's what we call our overview, because we just want them to have like the highlights. Okay, what does that meeting look like for you? Sometimes, most of our referral meetings are in person. Sometimes they can be done virtually if that works better for the family. If the family wants to invite an EDS or someone that they've been working with to the meeting, they can do that as well. This is the meeting that's really, really important, because the information that you provide for us is going to help determine what happens at the end of this meeting. Sometimes parents aren't great reporters, or they may not see things exactly the way you see them in the classroom. So if we're relying on the family to give us the information regarding the concerns, sometimes that referral might not move on for an evaluation if the parent comes and they're like, well, I think they're fine, he's just being a boy, I think, it's just new, he's not been, there's all the things that I'm sure that you guys hear when you're talking with families about development or behavior. So for those families, if we have more information from your side, then that's helpful. If we have an observation, if we have rating scales that you've done, then that gives the case manager more to chew on when it comes to talking about concerns for that child if the parent is not forthcoming with that. So at the end of the referral meeting, one of 2 things happens. We suspect that there might be a disability here, and we're going to move forward with an evaluation, and here's the evaluations that we're going to recommend based on the concerns. Or we don't suspect that there's a disability here. Yes, there may be some concerns, but they don't rise to the level of a disability, so we're not going to move forward with an evaluation. And usually for children, for children who are in Head Start already, we know that they're getting the things that they need to be ready for kindergarten. For families who may still be at home, then we're going to connect them with resources like our Ready to Learn centers or other opportunities, applying for NC Pre-K, those kind of things, depending on the age, to help them get some of the things they might need to work on before getting to kindergarten. But that's where it ends. And so a lot of times parents think, oh, if I ask, I'm going to get that eval, or you might be under that impression too, but if there's not a suspicion of a disability, it's not going to move forward. That's why what you send with that referral is so super important, because we hope a parent's going to come in and they're going to present the information in a way that gives us what we need to move forward, but that's not always what happens. So if an evaluation is not warranted by the team, and the parents are part of that team too, but if they're going, yeah, everything's okay, then they're not helping us make a decision to move forward with an eval. So if that stops, if that is the decision, no eval, the special education process stops, we're done. If an eval is recommended, then we're going to move forward with scheduling that. Evaluations are free for families. They can have multiple professionals in them depending on what concerns and areas of need were discussed at the referral meeting. It's also going to include an observation, and for those kiddos who are in Head Start, it's usually going to be in the classroom that they're going to want to come in and observe and see how that child is doing. If the family is still at home, that's where the child spends their time, then they'll want to do an observation at home. Once all those things are completed, they come back for the eligibility IEP meeting. Now, if the child's evaluations do determine that they have a disability, then the IEP will also be talked about at this meeting. If the evals don't support a disability based on North Carolina criteria, then there will not be an IEP meeting. The results of the eval will just be gone over. They will connect the family with some resources, make some suggestions, and the special education process ends. That's what we call did not qualify. So they did not qualify for D&Q in our short term. But if they did qualify, then they're going to suggest goals, amounts of service. They'll talk about that as a team, again, parents being part of that, and then they'll agree on those goals and services and how those services are to be delivered. As many times as possible, if the child is already in a space like Head Start, and we know they're getting good quality early childhood care, if their special education needs can be met itinerantly with an itinerant teacher coming in, then that's what they're going to try to do, is to write an IEP that will continue to support that. But if the child is needing so much special education services that it is going to require the itinerant to be there 5 days a week for several hours, well, then that's not the best use of, that's not the best way to meet that child's needs, nor the best use of our staff and resources. So that's when you start talking about a half-day special education program or a full-day special education program. And all that is based on what the eval tells us, what the child's needs are, and how much special education services it would take to meet those needs. So our services are free. Also, they can start as early as 3s. Our kiddos with early intervention, they certainly start the process of all this before they hit 3, but they can't have any services until they turn 3. And then our office reaches out. The family doesn't leave the IEP meeting knowing that they're going to go to Weatherstone and they're going to start on August 15th. They don't get that school assignment until after the case manager sends that assignment to the person who takes care of that, and she goes through and looks to see where there are seats at the type of program that was recommended. Our schools don't have all the same types of programs, so we have low incidence programs for children who have multiple disabilities and who are often not mobile, have a lot of medical needs typically. We have our structured teaching classrooms, full and part day, for children who have autism or need a high degree of structure. And then we have our DD classrooms, full and part day, for children who are developmentally delayed and have goals that are associated with working on that development. We also have only a small amount, though, a classroom for children who have like severe emotional and behavioral needs that have to be worked on in a very concentrated manner in a small group setting. So it's not just going to be, oh, well, you live here and there's a school next to you that has a preschool playground, so I know that's where my child's going to go. It won't work like that. If that's a low incidence classroom and your child needs a structured teaching classroom, then you're going to go to the school that has a structured teaching classroom with a space as close as possible to that family's home. We are extremely full in all the ways. I don't know how it is for you guys. We cannot catch up when it comes to referrals. We cannot seem to grow our classrooms enough to service children that are made eligible throughout the year. So we're starting off really full. We did get funds to open several new classrooms, but we were so full at the end of the year that we had several hundred families that decided, okay, no, I'm not going to go all the way out there or, end up being number 12 in a classroom. I'll just wait. I'll wait. So our spring was full of families deciding to wait based on we didn't have any seats, which is really not okay, or they didn't want to be in a classroom that was going to have that many kids have to travel that far, because it can mean a lot of times on transportation for families too towards the spring. But right now, we're pretty good for being able to start off. There's space for everybody, and hopefully we will not outgrow that space this year, but we will. So anyway, the family will later get a call with that assignment and a start date, which is usually like within 2 weeks of the IEP meeting, working on getting transportation and everything. These are great resources for the family right here, and this handout is one you can email to families, but it's also good for you. It's got the Child Find brochure attached. I'll just walk you through these other pieces. It has more in-depth information about the things I just talked to you about. For those families who have the capacity to take in more information, depending on what families have going on in their lives, sometimes they can handle this much. Just give me the facts and only the facts. Like, okay, it's gonna last an hour. All right, I know what I schedule off for work. You know, my child has to be there. My child doesn't have to be there, kind of stuff. But then, of course, there are families who want more information than that. And they can find it by clicking here where it will explain in more detail the referral meeting, the eval, eligibility, additional information, and then it also talks about our different types of services that we have. Let's see if I can get that just a little bit bigger. So children can qualify for speech primary, and that's where they're just going to get speech language services. Children might qualify for itinerant services that I know you guys are familiar with, where we're going to have a licensed BK teacher travel around to wherever that child is and provide services. Our part day programs, which are 4 days a week for 2 hours and 45 minutes. Then our full days, who are a full day of a full week of school, 5 days for 6.5 hours. And then we also provide special education services in several developmental day centers where these are particularly good slots for families who might need wraparound care. Because then they can pay privately for that before and after school care, whatever the developmental day has to offer. It's another option in often in a blended type of setting. And then we have other services based on what children's needs are. So there's that additional information when families click on that link. Let's see if I can get back to it without closing it out. Probably not. Nope. Usually end up closing it out. So there is also a link to developmental milestones for families. Like if a family is just questioning you a lot about, I don't really think my 4-year-old should be doing that. I don't really think my 3-year-old should be doing that. This is a great resource to send them to and be like, well, okay, well, why don't you go see what the CDC has to say about what a 3-year-old should be doing, what a 4-year-old should be doing, especially those of you who are doing home-based Head Start. If you have families with younger kids, this is also a great resource to send them back to. And then we have our Parents' Rights Handbooks, which we just want parents to know up front. Nobody's going to read it. But it's just, we just know they're not. But we have to provide that anytime a family is making a referral, just so they know what their rights are. This document, if you just keep scrolling on it, is in Spanish as well. So it's one electronic document in English and Spanish, and there are the same links for our Spanish-speaking families to the documents that I just showed you. So any questions about the process before I tell you like what you have to do to send a referral to us?
So I might be jumping the gun on this, but I know it's important. When I was EDS before I was center director, I was very involved in the referral meetings when they did have it. I know you mentioned everything that we send. Is there a way, because sometimes there's a disconnect between when the child gets, I guess, to a case manager and not communicating with us, because sometimes we get left out of what happens next.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way that can be connected to whoever sends the referral, like whether it be the home visitor or the EDS, so that case manager knows, you know, to be in contact with us because we signed the release, so I know we can communicate back and forth. Because a lot of times we get left out of the process and we don't know how a child has an IEP after we send the referral.
Okay.
So we have to do a lot of digging because the parents get confused, they don't know what those terms mean. So I was wondering if there was a way to connect those pieces,
Yes.
you know, to kind of
So,
keep us always in the loop. Unless you have a good relationship with case manager, sometimes there's new case managers.
right. So ideally, here is what should happen. Okay. When the case manager sees that there is an outside referral source, particularly like Head Start, they should connect with the EDS or the center director, if, you know, whomever they can get hold of who's on their release, and they should say, hey, you know, yeah, Joey, I've got his referral, and we've scheduled the referral meeting. They can't really be the one to invite you.
Right.
So what I think a lot of them do is say, hey, if you want your, you know, anybody at your center to come to the referral meeting, they kind of leave it to the parent to invite. Okay. With our case managers having the caseloads that they do right now, I think that sometimes best practices kind of slide off the plate because they are just struggling to keep up and are and really not even keeping up to where they feel good about the quality of work that they're doing. So the other thing you can do, which should not be on you, is you can reach out to the Child Find Office or reach out to me and ask who the case manager is.
Right.
So it takes a couple of days for kids to get assigned. We have to get them in our system and then enrolled, and then they get assigned. But my CFRs know that we don't have to have a release. Our case managers don't always know that, but like
Right.
we know that with Head Start being a federally funded program that we can give you guys some, information if you call. So I don't think there's gonna be, and I'll reiterate that with the Child Fund reps, because they're the ones that rotate the phone and the email and answering all those calls to the Child Fund Office. So I will just reiterate that with them, that if you say, hey, I sent this referral, can you let me know who the case manager is, that they'll do that so that you can reach out and connect if you haven't heard anything. I will also, my senior administrator, Jen Rothar, was gonna come today, and of course her child got sick, like it happens. And so I will mention to her too that you guys are feeling like that connection is not
Sometimes
there
it gets
as well
missed
as
and
you
kids
want
walk
it to
in with
be.
IEPs and we're just like, oh.
Yes.
Where'd that come from?
And since you asked that question, I'll let you know a little bit about how we've reorganized too before we go any further. So you've probably seen, if you've ever been in the Google folder for the Head Start referral packet before, you've probably seen this. So previously, our teams were called like PRT1, PRT2, Preschool Referral Team 3. Because of the volume we're experiencing, we did some reorganization at the end of the year, and we combined teams together into a region. They're not all necessarily at the same location. Hopefully at some point we will be more located within the West region of Wake County, the East region of Wake County, to where we're not in just Crossroads or a few of the other locations. But in the meantime, what it's doing is, for West, for example, it means that Trisha and Sarah, I no longer assign kids to just Trisha or kids to just Sarah. They get assigned to the West region. And Trisha and Sarah have to go in there and look at, okay, well, I have the OT-PT and this kid needs OT and PT, so I'm gonna take this one. Oh, well, this one doesn't need either, but I can get him in for a referral before you can, so I'm gonna take him. So it's no longer, well, if our early intervention numbers are down, the EI case managers are, it's all good, they're the smooth sailing for them and not feeling all the pressure. But our community case managers that get referrals like from you guys and everywhere else under the sun except for early intervention are like, oh gosh, our numbers have grown so much, I'm drowning over here. And so we're trying to, since we can't seem to get any more case managers, right now with budgets being what they are in Wake County, that they can utilize they can combine their resources and make it more of an even team effort. So it's no longer like, this is your kid and only your kid. It's like, this kid belongs to both of you guys. And so you may, where you might have been at a particular Head Start location and worked with just one case manager, like Matrice, okay, you now might also end up with Julia. Because they're both belong to the East region now, and kids that would just go to Matrice before are now gonna go in that East pot and they're gonna get doled out. So it's a little bit different in that way. I didn't move my other South person up here. And we took one team and made them an eligibility team because we have an outside agency that does evaluations for us because we have more kids than we can possibly evaluate ourselves. And that way, when they come back from that outside agency, that eligibility team can just move them through. They do nothing but eligibility meetings, and that actually allows them to get more done, close out more kids and get them services if they're eligible than a team that has to do it all can do. So it was one way to also help get kids through a little faster. So that's what's changed in our structure over at Crossroads. We don't have any new case managers at this moment. Sarah, she transitioned to a case manager last year, so she's been with us for a bit now, was a team teacher before that. Our eligibility team person is out on medical leave, so right now that's vacant, but this is our evaluation team lead who's covering that position right now. You know how that works when you're a lead. You know, somebody leaves, you end up doing all the things. She is doing all the things right now for that team. But this will also help you know who to contact if somebody does reach out to you, or if we forget to give you the contact information, which we shouldn't do. My child fund reps are pretty good about that. So hopefully that will help with that piece. Any other questions before we move to the nuts and bolts of how to make the referral? Okay. And I do want you to do just what Abby, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. I was like, I remember you were.
Yeah.
Congratulations on picking up.
Thank you.
So if there is any point where you're struggling with something that's going on, feel like there's a disconnect with the referral, you can reach out to me. Usually I'm kind of the front end of it, taking the referral, getting it assigned. Patty is the other side, the one who's covering that team. She's the other side of dealing with teams. Like CFRs are my people, case managers and teachers are hers. You can always reach out to her if you have any questions. She's listed here as well. And then Jen Rothar is our senior administrator. She can also support you with anything on the team side if you have questions. But if that's a lot to remember and you're just like, I just want to remember Connie, come to me. I can connect you with where you need to go. I know it's a lot. It's a lot nowadays with what we have to do with our kiddos. So let's see if I can get that a little bigger. Not going to read this document for you, but I just want you to know that it is here. So this tells you, explains everything that is in the packet and what that form is for, or what that handout is for, and what you need to do with it. So it's pretty simple. There's a checklist. There's our notification and referral form. That's the one thing we have to have. We can't enroll a child without that demographic information. If we can't get them into the system, then it's a little hard to move forward. If we don't have a phone number, it's kind of hard to contact family. All those things are very important. So that's our primary piece of documentation. There's a release there, and even though I said we know in the Child Fund Office that we can communicate with you without that release, and you're like our only, entity that we can do that with, that doesn't mean that everybody outside of the Child Fund Office understands that. So having that release, you're going to need it probably for that case manager, itinerant teachers, all that, because that has just been drilled into them so hard, where we know a little bit more of the ins and outs. We used to have an affidavit of residency in here, and I took it out because what happened is you seem to think that it needed to be completed in situations where it didn't need to be completed, and it's kind of a confusing document anyway. So I took that out, and you don't even have to worry about it. We'll handle that on our side with our preschool social workers if needed. And then the handout that I've already walked through with you is there, as well as the OEL contacts I showed you, and then our child fund brochure. So this is just basic information about what is in the folder. Now here's our packet checklist. So this is to help you, or help your teachers, know exactly what needs to be in this folder. Again, just connecting it with the child, Head Start teacher, home visitor. We need that notification and referral form, that release.
Should we put in that home visitor, I see Head Start teacher, or potentially the EDS, because that could be the EDS that's submitting that?
Absolutely.
Probably not the Head Start typically it's not.
Okay, perfect. I'll just put EDS.
Yeah.
And if you see anything else like that, please make recommendations. Change it right there. So any screenings you guys have done. Now this is what we need for proof of residence. I realize that you've probably gotten your proof of residence and it may no longer be valid for that family. It's great if you can go ahead and get it, but don't hold up sending the referral to us because mom hasn't brought you an up-to-date water bill, okay? We can always get that on our side. We would love it. We would absolutely love it if you have it, but don't hold that up. We don't not take referrals from families in the child find office because they don't send that with their referral. We just ask them to send it when they get it, and the case manager continues to work on that. So don't let that hold you up. Copy of birth certificate, if you would send us what you have, that's great. Health history, physical, immunizations, any of this stuff you have, again, don't hold up sending the referral for that. If it's gonna take you more than a day or two to get it together, then go ahead and send the referral. Okay, you can always send the other stuff later. Summary of observations and concerns. That right there is just the most important part. If all you send, other than notification referral form, if all you send is just a few words at the bottom of that notification referral form, and then that parent does not do a very good job of reporting concerns, or doesn't agree with your concerns, or for whatever reason, the things that are going on with their child have to do with trauma that the family's experienced. It can be very difficult for families to talk to strangers about. So the information that you share here will really help the case manager be able to lead that conversation and say, well, you know, I do see some things here that, you know, we should explore further and have some evaluations done. So it really helps support the case manager in supporting you and getting that referral to move forward. If you have any of this other information, go right ahead and send it. That will be helpful too, but again, don't hold the referral up for it. And then we get a signature and a date here, so we know. We just try to like keep that hierarchy where teachers weren't sending things without directors, supervisors, EDSs being aware of that. Anything that's on here that shouldn't be on here because things have changed on your side, or needs to be on here that isn't?
Nope.
Is looking good? All right.
Is the home visitor signing at the bottom, or is the home-based supervisor signing?
Home-based supervisor. This is just saying, you know, like, hey, if you're the person that's making it, we want your name, you know, up here, but we know that it needs to go through the EDS or through the home-based
So
supervisor.
does that even, do you want that on there, on the bottom there? Yeah. Cause the EDS, if the EDS is making it the home, I mean, I guess
Yeah,
I could
before when
sign
we had
off on
teacher, it made
Yeah.
sense for EDS to be down there.
Yeah, I'm
but-
thinking though, maybe not, and I mean, I don't think I need to sign off on this, cause that's a lot. I
Okay.
don't want that responsibility.
I love it.
I'm not gonna put out. I don't think, I mean, I don't know, what do y'all, I think home base, maybe it make, I don't know.
I
You
think
make-
I should.
You wanna
make
do
that
it for the
call.
home base?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't think I wanna sign off on every kid that gets referred. A home-based supervisor, if EDS, but if EDS is if you're making these referrals, do y'all, center directors need to sign off on the, what do you?
When I was in EDS, I was signing it myself.
Yeah, I would
You were
sign
signing
it.
it yourself.
Yeah, I would
Okay.
sign it myself,
Okay,
yeah.
to confirm that you're the one
I
signing,
added
perfect,
it.
perfect.
Okay.
Confirm I added it.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna write that
Yeah.
down.
I just wanted to make sense, I just was.
No, that's totally fine. These- Okay, I want you to
Okay.
stop and have these conversations if you need to have them. That is totally good.
That's fine, yes, good,
I think they were all the EDS, we were like checking off what we added and
And then sign
signing
it,
it.
okay, I'm not gonna sign off on
So, this is our notification referral form. It's just basic information about the child that we need to be able to enroll our child in our system. And, they have to be in Power School before they're gonna show in ECATS, which is the platform we use for the special education process. So it's just basic information. Please see that race and ethnicity are not the same, and we need to have something checked in both of those. You can check all that apply here for the race, however it is that the family identifies. And I know that a lot of Hispanic families are like, well, I'm Hispanic. They're not like I'm Hispanic and white, or I'm Hispanic and black, and so but we still need something. Unfortunately, that's the way Power School's set up, that's the way DPI is set up. So whichever one they seem to feel the most comfortable with checking. If it is left blank, we have a default, we give them in Power School, which is not gonna necessarily be correct. Basic information about the parent. If it's foster care, you need to know that. Here for the physical address, I just wanted to highlight this piece. If your family is living in a shelter, working with some other program because they are experiencing housing insecurity, and they may not have a valid proof of residence at this point. That's usually where the affidavit of residence came in. If you check yes here, then we automatically make a referral to our preschool social workers, not to get all up in their business, but to determine if they are McKinney-Vento status and if they have the rights and protections that come with that. So that's the role that our preschool social worker takes, is she'll call the family, she'll ask some questions, she'll determine if, oh, you're just living with your sister because you want to live with your sister, not because you got kicked out of your apartment and you have nowhere else to go. And so they go through that whole thing and determine if they're McKinney-Vento or not. So if you check yes, we will make that referral. If you check no, we don't do anything else. And so if an affidavit of residence, if they're not McKinney-Vento, but they do need to get an affidavit of residence because they are by choice doubled up and don't have anything in their name to show the proof of residence, the social worker will help them with that as well.
The affidavit of residence is a separate form from you?
It is a separate form that used to be part of this packet, but it's confusing, so I took it out and we take care of that on our side. All you have to do on your side is check yes, and then we handle anything else on our side that needs to happen.
What if for child, one of our kids are on McKinney-Ventos with us? Would we check that
So
box?
I would check that box and you could just write in here, has McKinney-Vento, if that's information that you can share, has McKinney-Vento status, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you check yes and move on, our social worker is gonna eventually figure that out. This is our form we use for everybody. You would just check yes here for a Head Start program. And if you know that that child might have had an IFSP previously or anything else about private services, this is a great place. This is not usually enough space to give us all the information that would make for a meaty referral. So if you are doing something separate, like a Word document where you have an observation or you wrote what you wanted to say, then you can just put C attached here. If it is truly just about the child's speech, this is probably gonna be enough space and you don't have to do anything separate. Usually the additional information is gonna be for those where behavior is a big part of it. So if a child is like showing significant developmental delays, you don't have to say a whole lot about that. Information will help. Speech, some general information will help. But for those children where it is really about how their behavior is impacting their ability to be in the classroom and function, learn, and access that environment, that's where we're gonna need the information, because they might come in that day for the referral meeting and be perfect because it's just them and people are doting over them and playing with them, and we know how that works. That's where we need it. And then just a spot for you to put your information down here again. So if this gets separated from the checklist somehow, we still have that. And honestly, the case manager's not looking so much at the checklist like we are in the child find office, they're looking at this piece of paper. So that's why we wanna have your name on it as well. All right, we have it in the folder in Spanish as well for our Spanish-speaking families. And forget how to navigate this. And then we have our lovely release. There's a blank copy of it here. There's a blank copy of it in Spanish. I'm gonna show you the sample copy where my child find rep Anita wrote notes. She's like, things get missed on it so easily, not y'all in particular, but wow, getting families to fill this out sometimes. So up here at the top is where the family's name goes in. They have to fill in this information for the student. You're not gonna have a student ID number most likely. That's, this is the school form. Outside provider would be you. If you have a family that you know is working with private speech therapy or working with a developmental pediatrician, and the family thinks, well, I don't have that report from that doctor, but I think that would be good information, they can fill it out for the doctor or speech as well, not just for you guys. But definitely, we would love one for you, because not everybody knows we don't need it. It's already pre-checked to be able to have conversations and the special education information. If there is anything else for some reason that you want to include on there, you would need to check anything else that you wanted checked. This is the part that most often comes back with check marks, but it has to be initialed. And so the family has to actually put their initials there. And we do have to have, you know, what they call a wet signature. It can't just be typed in. So if the family does, you know, for some reason does fill it in electronically, well, they can fill it in electronic, never mind. Getting mixed up in words. They can take a picture. We have some fillable ones that we attach to email. So that's what I was thinking about for this one. Of course, it's just going to be printed. They would just need to sign it, can take a picture, scan it, send it back to us.
Connie, this though has to be, in order for anyone in this room to be able to communicate with y'all to get information about the child that was referred, like a home visitor refers a child, if they don't have this submitted with their packet, right, they can't have this back and forth.
So they can with the Child Find Office staff.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure case manager is probably gonna say they can't tell you anything without
Right,
this,
okay.
because case managers aren't necessarily aware that because y'all are federally mandated to do
Right.
what you do,
right,
we can share that information,
okay,
and so,
okay.
get the release.
But the release puts that as not a barrier,
Right,
right? Like,
absolutely.
that would be just an extra layer of making sure.
And if it takes you a little while to get that release, again, you can go ahead and send the referral without it. Anytime you email a referral, which is how we prefer to receive them, we are gonna respond back that we've received that referral. We won't respond back with the case manager because it hasn't even been entered into the system or assigned yet, but we will say that we received that referral. If you send a referral and you do not get an email reply within 48 hours, then check back with us, cause something might have happened and we didn't get that. And occasionally, you know, things don't go once they leave your email box to come to our email box. Things can sometimes get messed up and not land where they're supposed to on the other side. And we've had, not often, but occasionally had referral partners who will come back 3 months later and be like, I haven't heard anything on this referral, and we have no record of ever receiving it, and they have no received reply from us. So if you don't have one in 48 hours and it's not a holiday or Christmas break or something like that, reach back out to us just to make sure that we got it. Child Family Reps are really good about sending that reply if they get it. So everything has to be filled out on this form before the parent signs it. You can't get your parent to sign it really fast because they're in carpool, and then you go back and fill everything else out. That's actually something that it says in here. One of the things that I'm not going to find it now where it's at, but that it was there it is, the last one. I acknowledge the form is completed prior to me signing my name below. So just make sure that it works that way. So that is really it. We've tried to weed it down as much as possible. The checklist is going to tell you all the, you know, additional things we would love to have and need. And then you have your referral form. That is the stuff we absolutely have to have in order to be able to enter the child in the system and contact the family. And then you have the release, which will keep there from being any barriers to communication with our office broadly. That's all we need back from you, those things. And then you have your document here that you can either print, or if you want to keep those links active for the parent, email to them. You don't have to share the Child Find brochure with them. That was just for your general information, and the contacts are for your information as well. Any questions about what's in the packet?
I don't have a question about what's in the packet. I just have a question in general.
Okay.
As we are completing referral packs and we are going through connecting with the families, going to the first eligibility meeting, and the families are really getting, I guess, that understanding, hey, my child may have a disability or they need this additional services. Sometimes that's when we get parents that say, you know, I don't want this process no more. They just back out. But they don't say it in that meeting because, you know, they're just not gonna talk. So they just go and then they start skipping the next meeting, and they don't do anything. Is there any way that we can like have some kind of documentation that's when it's going to the kindergarten teachers, that at least Head Start families, we did, you know, the process, we try and get the children additional services, but you know, like the parents just don't do anything.
Right.
So to make it look like we're not doing our part, the parent's not gonna share the information with the kindergarten teacher.
So here's how it works once it lands with us. When a referral comes from anybody other than the parent sending it, or someone inside of the school system sending a late project, part of our LEA, then it's considered a third-party notification. We use the word referral because that's what everybody thinks about it being, but it's really a notification that we suspect this child has a disability. So the case manager has to connect with the family and say, hey, your EDS over at Head Start sent this notification to us. Are you interested in moving forward with this process? If the parent says yes, then it's now considered a referral, and a referral meeting will be held whether the parent ever shows up or not. So we used to not have as many tights around this, but our as we should have had. But every year, awareness of policy and compliance grows, and interpretation of it grows. And our new senior administrator, she's not really new anymore, but our current one was in policy and compliance for Wake County before she came into this position. So there's not a single bit of policy that Jen does not know. And so if once that parent says yes, a referral meeting has to happen, that's going to be an ECATS. So regardless of whether that family never shows up for another meeting or not, the team has to meet with the information that they have and decide, do we suspect a disability? And so if there's good chunky meaty information there, they may be like, yeah, we kind of do suspect there's a disability and we recommend an evaluation. They will share that information with the family. If the families were to sign yes, which they're probably not, if they never showed up for any of the meetings, then we move forward with that evaluation. Likely what they're going to do is not respond. Or if they do respond, they sign no. Well, then it gets closed. That the family did not agree with the evaluation. All of that is in ECATS. So the next teacher, if she's starting to be like, okay, I'm wondering if this child's got a referral history. Did preschool not find this child? Well, what are they doing over there? They're going to look in ECATS and they'll see that. So they'll know that you guys did that part. If the family says no from the very beginning, there would not be any information in ECATS, but we will be moving towards this year where the case manager will still have to go in there and do what's called a prior written notice to say that there was a third-party notification received, the family did not respond regarding moving forward with it, or said no regarding moving forward with it, so that there is that history. Because we have the same concerns about children landing in kindergarten, and we've received 3 referrals on them, but the parent never moved forward with anything, or 3 notifications, and because let's say, you send something, the physician sends something, a speech therapist sends something. Well, those are all third-party notifications, and previously, if the family did not respond, or they said, no, I'm not interested in that, it never got documented in ECATS. It would be documented in our in-house system about receiving notifications and referrals, but kindergarten teachers can't see that. So that information really needs to be in ECATS. So that's one thing I'm happy about us improving on. And I know what it feels like for them to be like, well, why didn't y'all find that kid?
Yeah, we'll find them. They go to that meeting
And
and they're like,
sometimes
okay,
they
they're
get,
back out.
even when they, and this just goes for everyone to know, I know some of y'all already know this information, but if the child is still found, if they've gone through the evaluation process, Wake County found them eligible for services, but then the parent says, actually, I don't want this, because that happens sometimes. The eligibility, the letter that the family has received, that eligibility notice, we still will receive disability credit even if the child does not. So that child can still be entered into Child Plus will be entered in as a child with an IEP, even though the child is not going forward with services because they were deemed eligible, which means they still
They
have
do have a disability.
They have a
They're
disability.
just choosing not
they're
to get
choosing not to
services.
have services, and then we would mark that accordingly. So when those kind of situations happen, when we meet home base, because EDSs, I know you guys know how to do this, but when we meet with you guys, we're going to show you how to document a child that might be in that situation where they were found eligible but not receiving services.
And there's 2 ways a parent can do that in preschool. In preschool, they can, on the consent for services, they can sign no. And that will mean, well, the child does still have a disability, but they're just saying, no, I don't want any special education services. They can also revoke services. but they usually don't do that, they just will say no. Or they can go inactive in preschool. They can't do that in the school system, because when they're in the school, they're active, okay? But for us, they can say, I do wanna, I might want these services later, I just don't wanna access them right now. And they can be inactive. So if you ever have a family, and we have this come up sometimes, that are in your centers, and you, for whatever reason, you're just kinda like, well, I think this kid has an IEP, something the family says, or whatever, but you know that there's nobody showing up to see them, that's because they're not accessing, potentially because they're not accessing those services. And they could access them at any time if they chose to do so.
So if we have a
Those-
child that
those are
comes into the
eligible.
program, the parent says, my child has an IEP,